Beta Upsilon Chi, Bucks, presents Man to Men, the premier audio journal for men who live faithfully and lead courageously. We're hitting 100 episodes here at the show. Since May 2024, you guys have just been incredible in your support, your feedback, your sharing of the show. And we want to take a season to represent some top episodes, to represent some top episodes and some conversations that we've had that we're calling Best Men. Today, we're representing a conversation we had with Christian Pinkston. He's the CEO, founder, and partner at Pinkston PR and Strategy. We're going to discuss a lot of things, guys. I think you're going to enjoy Christian. He's one of my favorite men, favorite humans, really. He's got a unique journey of faith that I think you're going to find really compelling. We talk a lot about authenticity in this episode, examining how he confronted his own struggles and identity really over the last 10 years of adulthood. He's going to share how just the initial appearance of success really masked a deeper emptiness for him. We're also going to get into the professional realm, where Christian provides, just a masterclass of invaluable insights on the intersection of how do you be a spiritual man working in the public sector? How do you go in and nail the interview? All of that. We're getting into the practicals and so much more today on Best Men with Christian Pinkston. Well, man, we always start here just interviewing each man or woman that we host, just getting to know more about you and your walk with Jesus. How did you start walking with Jesus Christ, and how's that looked over the years? I tell everybody it doesn't have to be the short version. It goes for you too.
If I really told you my story or the answer to that question, that would be a totally separate podcast.
That's great. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite stories to tell. It is embarrassing and horrifying. It's humiliating and it's beautiful at the same time. And so, as not to hijack the whole podcast or conversation, let's give you a really short version. I have been a Christian leader in some context since college, which was, 30 years ago. I've been following Jesus for about a decade, and there's a story there. 10 years ago, I was an elder at a large, pretty prominent church. I was leading a Bible study. I was on the board of Bucks. I was a lot of things to a lot of people. And I was confronted brutally with a realization that I was living a lie. And I was trying to get significance from getting approval from people that I valued. And that was in a business context. It was trying to crush it. It was in a social context, trying to be like the smart, funny guy. In a kind of faith-centered context, it was being the leader, the spiritual leader, the guy. And I was all of those things on the outside, killing it, but there was nothing inside. And so it's just for another story that is told on my arms. I was just confronted with a lot of sin that I was hiding, almost a double life. I was confronted with the fact that all of the things that I was pretending to be weren't true. And I had no idea who I was. I didn't know my identity. My identity was wrapped up in perceptions and reputation. And man, the Lord confronted me in a brutal, painful, beautiful way and changed everything. So it's looked a lot different over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Tell us what some of the differences were in the last 10 years. What way are you walking with him differently?
I mean, it's radically different because I am walking with him. I'm not pretending to walk with him. Do I stumble and fall and fail? A lot. Like, I suck at this. But am I pursuing him? Yeah. Failingly. Is he pursuing me? Yeah. And I know it. Am I struggling? Yeah. But man, I wasn't struggling before. Struggling is a good thing. I'm working out my salvation. And And so everything looks different. I would say, and you and I have talked about this before in other contexts, I would say the thing that is most different is, or one of the things is that I'm trying to be a fully integrated man. I'm trying to be the same guy when I'm praying, when I'm in a business meeting, when I'm at the dinner table, when I'm at church, when I'm in a hotel room alone in some far off place, trying to be the same guy. And that is what it looks like. Now, do I succeed at that? Not always, but I'm getting better. It's sanctification, right? But I'm in the fight, and it looks radically different.
Man. Hey, thank you for just sharing with the guys some of your story, Christian. I'm sure some of them could relate. Whereas it's so interesting the way you frame your story because of your day job. You work in PR and strategic communication.
Yes.
And one of the reasons I wanted the men to hear from you is because I think you have a redeemed view and practice of these things. So I'll begin to open that box a little bit. How in the world is image and public relations a Christian concern?
Yeah. It's such a good question with such a complicated answer. A lot of people think public relations is synonymous with being fake or putting on a facade. And that is what it was for me. Like, I am really, really good at this. And I'm really, really bad at this. And so the irony that I'm in PR and that I was my best client to my own detriment is not lost on me. It's poetry or something. I don't know. There's a negative connotation with the word image or PR. People think spin, obfuscation, manipulation, and that is often what it is.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be. How we as Christians are viewed by other people, it actually matters. Now, you want to do that with authenticity, but it matters. For better or worse, we are living, breathing, walking demonstrations of the gospel at work in real life. And so communicating well, clearly, effectively, it's just important. And one point that I would add is that God made us to connect with one another, and Him to us primarily or significantly through story. It's a huge element of His word. Everything He communicated with us was illustrated and made real through story. I mean, the gospel is story.
So true.
And a good story changes hearts and minds. It spurs action. It incentivizes donations or investments or legislative changes or public opinion or so many other things. A great story can change the world. And that's critically important if there's integrity and authenticity injected into that equation. So I can be proud of what I do now because we do it with substance.
What are some of the hurdles that you and your colleagues find in staying authentic in a profession and even in a world that is focused on spin, that is focused on half truths and some of the things you mentioned earlier? How do you guys fight to stay authentic and truthful in your work?
I mean, I have the luxury and benefit of working with a lot of people. I run a company that is not a Christian company.
Right.
There are quite a few believers who work with us, and we work on quite a few faith-based causes, but that's not the majority of what we work on. And I don't think it's probably the majority of people who are here. And so, I think for a lot of people, who may be listening and are trying to figure out how do you integrate your faith into your professional life. I think this is where it's at. It is being surrounded by people either at work or outside of work who are involved in your life and who are speaking into your life from a gospel perspective. And there's some accountability there. There's encouragement, there's challenge, there's some intimacy there. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that, you're putting yourself in a precarious position because you're listening to the echo chamber of your mind and you're listening to the echo chamber of the world. And those can be dangerous places.
Yeah. Yeah, they really can, especially just with a lot of the crises in communication we see, particularly among believers, candidly. I know that you guys are on the front lines of a lot of those things. What are some things that Christian leaders or maybe even emerging Christian leaders who are listening in to our conversation, what do they need to know about image and public relations when it comes to crisis management? You mentioned earlier that, we are representations of the gospel. How can we do that when the heat is on, when the crisis comes?
Man, we handle a ton of crises, both companies, ministries, churches, high profile individuals, secular leaders, Christian leaders, seen a lot of different ways in which people have handled and navigated crisis. I've seen some of the most horrifying things in my life. And I've seen some of the most encouraging things in my life. I wish I could tell you stories here to illustrate just some incredibly humble, authentic, Christ-like responses of some, significant figures that you would know in how they have navigated some of the most difficult moments of their lives. And I think that one of the threads that remains constant is an order of love or an order of priorities. We find that when your primary motivation is to protect yourself or your reputation, or in many cases, your primary motive, put like in a Christian context, head of a ministry, head of a church. You're in the roughest moment of your life. It is very easy to convince yourself that the institution that you lead is intrinsically valuable to the kingdom. And so that entity, that organization, institution must be protected for the good of the people it serves or for the reputation of the kingdom or the gospel. And that's where people start making terrible decisions.
Is that because they add at any cost to the end of those statements?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen that. Yeah.
That is never the goal. Like, that is not why we're here. We are not here to defend ourselves. We're not here to defend our organizations as believers and leaders in a Christian context. We are here for one thing. There's one entity that deserves glory and defense, and that is the gospel and God, Jesus. And if that is our motivation, we see people make hard decisions and do hard things and make a sacrifice that you feel like in the moment is going to wreck your witness or your ability to minister or succeed as an organization. And the irony is And I could tell you story after story after story after story.
Yes,
The irony is when you approach it that way, it's always the best possible outcome. And when you approach it with with yourself as the primary priority, it always goes badly. There's an irony there. And there's some principles
true
I think you could.
Crisis communication and personal communication, I'd say too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, that is the difference between how a real Christian leader responds and anybody else. A couple of other things that I would add, because you mentioned just some life skills. I think when you're talking about a crisis, a couple of principles we see, the most mistakes that we see people make are on two ends of a spectrum. One is they are paralyzed and they let a narrative play out without their voice, and turning that narrative around is very, very hard. They get caught flat-footed. And so from an organizational standpoint, when we work with a ministry or a church or a company, we prepare for crisis so that when something goes wrong, and it always does, we're ready to roll immediately. You want to get in the first news cycle so you're not trying to change the narrative a day later. But then the other mistake that we see people make is when you're attacked or when something goes wrong, it's easy to feel like you're the center of attention. Everyone's watching me. Everyone's criticizing me. I'm going down. And that causes some people to overreact. And then they start responding in a way that is actually much larger. It's reaching a much larger audience than who would otherwise even be aware of this. It's easy in the kind of in the storm to feel like the storm is much bigger than it is. And so having an outside perspective and kind of responding and communicating in the most laser-like fashion to only the people who are aware, it's a great gift that we are able to give to clients, is having an outside perspective. Hey, I know this seems horrible, but we're not seeing anything. There's no media inquiries. Twitter, there's almost no mentions, and the mentions that we find don't have high engagement.
Right.
And I don't see anything on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, but they're only hearing from the people, who are upset or whatever.
And then, having that experience, being in a couple of ministries where we've had a few communications firestorms, it does feel like the entire world's attention is dialed in on you. And the first thought is you've got to get it out there. But sometimes what you're saying is that perpetuates the story.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to add oxygen to a story that is dying, and you don't want to increase an audience who's aware of the situation that doesn't already exist.
It's good. It's good wisdom. There's a lot of being wise as serpents, innocent as doves in what you're saying.
Yeah. And there are moments where you're like, if you or your organization make a mistake or you do something wrong, you got to own it. Like, you're not going to get out of it, and you got to own it, and you got to own all of it immediately. But at the same time, we're in a culture where a lot of people of faith are going to be criticized and attacked for no other reason than other people don't like what you're saying, and they don't like what you stand for, and they just don't like who you are. And you also have to have enough security in your identity and in your worth and in your position in Christ, which is sealed for eternity, that you can let it go. And a lot of people can't do that. Man, stay off Twitter, in my opinion.
Amen.
You have to be able to determine when a critique is legitimate and deserves a correction, course correction, apology, or response. And you got to be able to determine when, you know what? They can attack me all they want, but me engaging with them is not going to move the ball forward in any way for anyone. So I'm just going to leave it alone.
Right.
And that's hard to do.
It is.
But it's important.
It is. That ego, both individually and corporately,
Totally.
as an organization, is so difficult. Gets us in such trouble.
And you see, I mean, I don't want to belabor this. I wrote a piece a year ago or so about Christian cannibalism.
Yes.
And watching Christians attack each other. And I just saw, I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but I just saw another thing yesterday that just almost sent me into a spiral of sadness, because people are picking these myopic issues, and instead of loving one another sacrificially and agreeing to disagree on issues that aren't fundamental, man, Christians can be more brutal toward one another, especially on Twitter,
yes,
than the world. They will know us by our love. Like, I'm not seeing it in a lot of contexts. And so that's just one of these other things, along the lines of what we're talking about. Man, if you're attacked, the response is not necessarily to respond or attack back. In fact, I would say rarely is it. And a lot of us are just not good at that. In this particularly polarizing political year, including in communities of faith, man, I don't think there's many more important things to be thinking about right now.
Man, it's a good word. It's a really good word. I would encourage you guys to go find Christian's op-ed. I think it's still timely even now, just a year later. College guys, is your ideal summer job a place where you can get paid, gain important skills, and make a gospel impact? If so, then working camp is your dream summer job. You could spend your summer wearing a suit and tie in a cubicle, or spend it investing in the lives of over 100,000 campers nationwide who come to one of Lifeway's camps this summer. Friend of the show and regional sponsor Lifeway offers 3 national options for serving at camp: Fuge, Student Life, and CentriKid. All will pay you, they'll train you, and they'll give you plenty of opportunities to serve the church while building critical skills and a work ethic that will serve you well in any future career. And no guarantees, guys, but you could also meet your future wife. You can get more information about the job, not your future spouse, on the links in our show notes. So please make your summer count. Consider working camp. Well, Christian, we're adding a new segment that we're doing here on Man to Men. May even break this out a little bit on the socials, just called Life Skills, as we have had many of the men who listen in talk about and ask is like, hey, as you're talking to people, can you pick up just kind of like, what is each guy's like thing that he does that would help us, whether it's our collegiates that are listening, maybe our, kind of mid 30s, 40s guys who are just thinking like, hey, I just need to spruce some things up here. Or maybe even just some of our more seasoned listeners who are saying, what's something that I could send a guy to give him just some brush up on some life skills? And as I was thinking about you, I think that you deal a lot in working with young men. We mentioned some of that in the bio. You work with Bucks as well. And also you interview and think through hiring a lot of people. So I'd love to get your ideas on just how can a man spruce up his resume to better represent himself, as we've been talking about, authentically.
Yeah. We are about to welcome an intern class at my company in a few weeks. And I think there's 14 of them. And we opened up applications in, I think, like January or something. And we had 400 and some odd applicants for 14 positions. Our take rate was more stringent than Harvard University's enrollment, which I'm kind of joking, but it was like, for whatever reason, it was almost impossible to get an internship here this summer. And so I've been thinking about it. I actually recommended like 5 people for an internship. And to the credit of my colleagues, 0 of them got through. And these were impressive people. And I kind of loved that, to be honest. But it made me start thinking, like, if you're in a pool of 400 people and there's a very limited number of slots available, what do you do to stand? Like, what could these folks that I recommended have done differently to stand out? The resume is important. It's the first thing that people see. It needs to be bulletproof, and it needs to be more about telling a story than it is a list of factoids. Creating a narrative in the resume that kind of talks about a progression that leads you to this specific position is important. But for me, what is more important than a resume is an incredible cover letter.
Good.
And honestly, this is where I see most people phoning it in. If I get a resume and cover letter, I first go to the cover letter. And if it looks like a form letter, I will delete it. Like, I won't even look at the resume because I'm looking for people who go above and beyond. Like, I need people that represent our clients in a really smart, thoughtful, tailored, prepared way. And if you're not going to do that in your effort to get a job here, I don't have any confidence that you're going to do that once you get here. And so that's the first thing I'm looking for. How much effort did they put into telling me or us specifically why they belong here? And it's, can pieces of it be boilerplate? If I can't tell, of course, I don't expect everyone to sit down and write a completely separate, but it needs to be tailored to me, to us, in a way that represents the applicant as hardworking and thoughtful and go the extra mile and did a little research. And I want to work there. I'm not just looking for a job, which is what a form letter communicates to me. That communicates, I have blanketed the world with this, and hopefully somebody will notice. I'm not looking for that. I want to believe that person is only applying here. That's compelling to me.
No, that's really helpful. So don't just print off my LinkedIn page. That's what I heard there. Yeah. Work on the storytelling. Work on why I want to work here.
Yes. That's huge for me. That's huge. And it's the first thing I look at. If you don't clear that bar, I will never even open your resume.
So Christian, what are some good strategies for a man going into a job interview, presenting himself?
Well, okay. So you took my advice on the cover letter and you had a buttoned up resume that told a story with an objective. You get the interview. And again, this is where I've seen so many mistakes. And so, I got a bunch of things. They're little and they might seem silly, but they actually add up and they matter. And the first one, and it is by far the most important one, is prepare. Do your research. Like, find out everything you can about my company and about me or whoever it is you're interviewing with. Like, stalk me. Because you better know that I'm going to stalk you too.
That's right.
And so that would be a second piece of advice is know what's out there about you. Like, if all I can find out about you is your huddle page and some social media posts that may or may not be how you want to represent yourself,
right?
Like, you need to be thoughtful about creating a platform for yourself that is going to sell well. You need to spend some time on LinkedIn. You need to have a lot of links, everybody you can think of. And you need to have content on there that's not invisible. Go the extra mile. I'd be impressed if I went to somebody's LinkedIn page who was a college graduate or early in their career, and I see that they're active and they're posting content and they're interacting. That's important. And it's also, am I going to look at your Instagram? If I can find it, you bet I am. And if it's stuff that you don't want me to see, you might want to lock that down before you go into the interview process, because it matters. I have turned down interviews before because I just didn't like what I saw there. Like that's not the kind of person that we want here.
Yeah, that's your prerogative.
So no, yeah, totally. And a lot of people do that. Know what's out there. Know how you look before you even start this process. So you go to your interview. When do you show up? Dude, you show up in the parking lot 30 minutes early, because traffic, not a good excuse. There was a wreck, not my fault. You were late. Show up way earlier than you think you do. And then spend that time in your car going over your notes and refresh yourself so that you're ready to roll when you walk in. You also want to scope out, if it's an in-person interview, you want to, and if it's online, show up 5 minutes early, easy. Your computer might need to reboot or whatever. If there's a problem, you want to give yourself margin.
Oh yeah. The infamous Zoom refresh has thrown off so many interviewees.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's in person, scope out the front desk. If you're going into interview in DC or New York City or another big metro area, you're probably going to have to contend with your ID at the lobby, and even to get access to an elevator. Man, there's a line and you got 5 minutes before your interview starts, you're in trouble. Scope it out in advance, know what you're dealing with, show up early. The goal is to be on the elevator, if such an elevator is necessary, 5 minutes before the interview. You want to get there 3 or 4 minutes. You want to walk in 3 or 4 minutes before the interview time, not 15 minutes. That's weird. I feel weird pressure if the receptionist calls and says, "Hey, your 9:30 is here." And I'm like, dude, it's 9:00. So, your time, this sounds dumb, but I'm just giving you pro tips. That's when you want to show up. Then you want to present yourself well. What does that mean? It means you want to know the culture in which you're interviewing, and then from what do you wear? Increase that by 25%.
That's good.
When in doubt, overdress. You don't ever want to be dressed any more casually than the person interviewing you. And in many, even my company, this is how I dress on a normal day.
Yep.
But
for our non-YouTube viewers, if you're just listening, Pinkston is in a yellow polo shirt.
Yeah.
Looking good, showing the tats, but, getting stuff done.
Once a week, I have to wear a suit. And if you come in and interview me on that day, even though we have a very casual work environment, you're going to be off balance. You're going to be like, dude, I made a mistake here. And so you always want to err on that side. Then, more importantly, here's where interviews go off the rail. I will ask you questions and you're expecting them, and usually that part goes well. So I'll ask you questions and you'll be prepared, because I ask fairly standard questions. I don't ask crazy things. And then I pivot about halfway through the interview to the more important part of the interview, where I say, Jared, do you have any questions for me? This is where it happens for me. This is more important than your answers to my questions, because then you're driving the conversation and I get to see the way you're thinking.
That's right.
And I mean, so many times I will ask that question and the person I'm interviewing will say, no, I don't think so. If that was if that's the answer, the interview is over by definition, but the interview process is over because it wasn't a person who was curious, who had thought about the interview critically, and it communicates that I don't really care about this place. I just want a job. And so you've got to have questions in advance. They need to be written down in your notebook, and you need to select the questions that make sense based on the conversation that we've had. Don't ask me questions that are self-serving. If you ask me about our vacation policy or what time you'd have to be here or anything like that, don't ask me even about what's your work from home policy or anything like that. That communicates to me that you are more concerned about what we can bring to you than what you can bring to us. And that's a real, that's a deal killer really for me usually. And then another thing that is a major deal killer for me is if an interviewee asks me a question they could have Googled or that they could have found with a thorough investigation of my website. If you come in and you ask me, so who are some of your clients? I will probably punch you in the face because it communicates to me that you didn't even go to my website. That's the easiest thing to find. I think it's on the front page.
Right. Less than a layup, man.
Oh, yeah. Totally. And so I want you to ask me questions that only I can answer. And your questions will almost compliment me in the asking. Man, you have done, Christian, you've done so much in your career. It's been really fun for me to kind of walk through, the work that you're doing. And it's so intriguing to me, man, since I'm in a room with you, I would love to know, what's the favorite thing that you worked on? What do you think that you've done that has had the most impact? Or what is the hardest challenge that you worked on? Or asking me questions that draw out insight from me that you couldn't get from someone else. That's so intriguing to me. And it's somebody that's somebody I want to work with. And that's somebody who I believe wants to work here. They don't just want a job. Being able to articulate to me what is special about Pinkston and why that is a great fit for you is really intriguing and compelling to me. And not a lot of people do that. So you finish the interview and you jet. What then? How do you keep the conversation going? Handwritten note is table stakes. If you're not doing that, if it's not in the mail that day, come on. But that's table stakes. I get a lot of those and it's meaningful to me, but I'll tell you what's a lot more meaningful. If you follow up with me either in the handwritten note or you shoot me an email later, you're going to want to stay in front of me so I don't forget about you, but you're also going to be wondering if you're like any human being, how did that go? Am I still in the mix? Are they going to make an offer? And so you want to email me and say, hey, I just wanted to check in. Have you made a decision? Or, is there any information on the progress or when do you expect it? You want to do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't ask me for something. Give me something. So Jared, if you interview with me a week ago and I got your handwritten note 2 or 3 days ago, I'm thinking about you and I know you're dying to hear from me. But if I get an email from you on day 5 and it's like, hey, Christian, really enjoyed our time together the other day. I was just reading a piece this morning in the Wall Street Journal that reminded me of the conversation we were having about X. I just wanted to make sure you saw it. Like that is so impressive to me.
Right. Yes.
Or, hey, I was just thinking about one of the things we talked about, or one of the challenging clients you have. I mean, have you ever thought about whatever? I don't even care if it's a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
It tells me you're thinking about us. You're wanting to add value. And like those are the people we want to hire. And so there's so many things. One last thing and I'll stop.
This is gold. Yeah.
If you can get someone else who I know that we know in common to mention you to me, there's almost nothing more valuable than that. And so if you walk out of my office and 2 days later, somebody else is like, shoots me an email or a text, or I see them and like, oh, hey, I heard you talk to Jared Musgrove the other day. Man, that guy is incredible. I've been so impressed with ... Then I'm like, okay, this validates what I was thinking. And it makes me much more confident to move forward.
Oh, yeah. Dude.
Engineer those.
Yes, just solid
and if you
gold.
can do those, like that's also super powerful in getting the interview. You say you're one of the 400 people that sent in a resume for an internship, but somebody called or texted or emailed me and said, hey, you received an application today from so-and-so. I just wanted you to know, I've known Jared since he was, a toddler. Man, watching him grow up and become a man and seeing, how impressive he is, I really think you should give him, man, you'll get an interview.
Yeah, that's great. Man, it's also good to hear that from you, just in case this pastor and Bucks director thing doesn't pan out. I'm taking notes. Well, man, thank you. That is solid gold, Christian. There was a reason I wanted to ask you those questions for our men, and I hope you fellas were taking notes too. Well, to something you mentioned earlier, man, to asking you questions only you can answer. This is our Everywhere Every Day segment, where we take a more personal look as we end up each program at how each guest approaches just life and moving and observing and just being. And I don't know a better place to start than just like the start of the day. So, Matt, Christian, what time do you get up in the morning? What's the first things you got to do?
I hate this question. Because this is going to sound insincere and legalistic. But 10 years ago, when I started following Jesus, it was a very difficult time in my marriage and in every part of my life. Honestly, it was a very brutal, painful time. And my wife and I were healing from some wounds that I had inflicted. And she gets up every morning for as long as I have known her. We've been married for 26 years or something. She gets up every morning, goes downstairs and spends time, makes coffee, spends time in her Bible and praying and just spending time with the Lord. And I've never done that. I started it like 1,000 times in my life with good intentions. And like many things in my life, I never followed through. And so I remember in that moment, she got up one morning and went down there, and I was looking for ways to demonstrate to her that I was serious about my faith and serious about her. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll go down there too. And if I'm being honest, I went down there purely to manipulate her into thinking that I was serious. But I did, but I still went down there. And so I spent a little bit of time, and then the next morning I kind of woke up as she was getting up and going down, and I was like, well, I know this isn't going to last very long, but I'm going to do it again. And so I went down there, and I remember just sitting there feeling a little bit guilty, feeling some shame, because I knew that I was down there for the wrong reason. But I just started praying to the Lord. I was like, Lord, I know this isn't going to last, because it never has. But today, as long as I'm down here, I came down here to manipulate my wife into thinking something about me. But since I'm here, I'm not going to waste it. So Like, here I am. Like, what do you want to tell me?
Hmm.
And then I got up the next day and I did the same thing. And the next day 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 and the next day. And this morning I got up, went down, made coffee, went and sat by the fireplace with my wife, and probably haven't missed. I mean, if I have a 6 a.m. flight, it's not happening or whatever. But on a normal morning, I don't think we've missed. And it sounds legalistic. It just does. And it sounds unrealistic because I've listened to people say this and either thought they were lying or that there was something wrong with them. And like, I felt that feeling that this couldn't, like, that's not me. That could never be me. I would never sustain that. And I don't know what to attribute it to, except you get to a point where you wouldn't consider not doing it. Like it doesn't, like, it's not a chore and it's not an effort. It is just what you do. Like,
Yeah.
Like I didn't think about it this morning. I just got up and did it. And, and I still have that conversation with the Lord somewhat. It's a lot different. The conversation more is, Lord, I know I kind of came down here because this is just what I do. And it would be easy for me to phone it in. But Lord, since I'm here, like, let's actually have a moment.
It's a great prayer.
And it's amazing how often I have a moment. And then we pray, again. This is one of those things that like people say and you're like, that's crap. But we pray every morning before I go upstairs and go get ready for work.
Yeah.
And so that's a routine in my life. Another routine in my life that you didn't ask about, but I think is important, is kind of a bookend. I do that, get ready, go to work. And then I take off work a little bit early. Don't tell anyone. And I go to the gym.
You're the
day.
boss.
I know, but sometimes it makes it easier and sometimes harder, but I go to the gym almost every day, unless there's an immovable, like, client conflict. And I go before I go home. There's a lot of reasons I do it, but one of the reasons is because it's such a great buffer when you go home to shed the day and like have some time alone and to process and reprogram and then go home.
Yeah.
In a different context. Still same guy, but shedding a lot of the stuff that was building up over the day.
Man, it's really good. No, I don't hear legalism. I hear commitment, steadfastness, faithfulness. There's a fine line between legalism and those things. It's all about the heart with which it is done. I mean, what a providence of God in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not legalistic because I don't have the capacity at this point in my life to be legalistic. I'm not disciplined enough for that. but I know it sounds that way.
No, I don't think so, man. I think you're giving us an imagination for what it could be.
Man, I will tell you, if you are married and again, it sounds so unrealistic, but if you got in this rhythm with your wife, it would change everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, Jenny and I do about at least 15 minutes of coffee together every morning. Again, if I'm not traveling or I'm not out, actual mornings. And it's funny, we started doing that a few years ago. I just read an article this last year that said the number one indicator of marriages, Christian or secular, marriages that stay together is they make time for 15 minutes together, 15 to 20 minutes every day, where they're having coffee or they're looking at each other. That's the number one indicator.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Imagine what that statistic would look like for couples who are praying together daily.
Oh, yeah. You talk about spiritual power.
No kidding.
Steadfast. Yeah. All of that. I mean, that's probably another podcast. We'll do that one day. Yeah. So you and your family are really close. What does Christian community look like for you guys? You're really involved at your church, but you're also really busy individuals.
Yeah, dude, it is so hard. It's so good and so hard. I mean, there's a prioritization of community. And for me, it's going to look different than someone else. Like my priorities are intentional and they're different than a lot of people. I mean, some of them will be the same. Like my priority from a community standpoint is my family and spending most nights at home with protecting nights, especially when your kids are at home, like really, really important.
Yeah.
You can be doing too many things with your community and obliterate that critical time with your kids.
Mm.
And so that's a first thing. Family, my small family and my extended family too, making time and space for them is really, really important.
Mm.
For me, this might sound odd, but I would say Bucks is in the mix for second or third.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean I'm on campuses all the time, although I am as often as I can.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of relationships in Bucks, a number of guys who work with me or who I'm close to both geographically and just virtually. I mean, there's a lot of community there, a lot of interaction. If you looked at my text messages, aside from my immediate family, it's going to be more Bucks guys than anyone else. My work community, which overlaps with my Bucks community, is also really important because I view it as part of my ministry.
Yeah.
And they're not just coworkers, they're like I am called into their lives and vice versa for unique reasons, whether or not they're following Jesus or not, it doesn't matter. They're my community. And then, from a church standpoint, we're mentor couple for the young married couples in our church. That's probably healthy or not. That's probably most of our friends. Mm-hmm. If we're going to go out on a double date or we're going to have folks over, it's usually young married couples with a lot of babies. And then, some peers at church and stuff like that. But that's kind of what the hierarchy looks like.
No, that's really good. We've talked a little bit about storytelling on here. I always want to ask some of our guests is what are some of your favorite Bible stories, or who are the people in the Bible with whom you most identify or want to be like?
Yeah. To answer this question, I have to give you a little bit of a backstory.
Love it.
I'll try to go fast, so I'm not taking up too much time. But one of the things, if you go back to my story, one of the things I struggle with is believing that Jesus loves me. And even more difficult to believe is that Jesus likes me. Mm. And that is a struggle for me. I tend to believe that Jesus tolerates me begrudgingly because he has to or something. And he's kind of tired of when I fail, and I feel like he's tired of dealing with me. I mean, that's just how I feel often. And part of that every morning thing is course correcting and re-infusing myself with the truth. I would recommend a book called Gentle and Lowly that I keep rereading because it refreshes who Jesus is to me and makes it believable that he could love and like me.
Great recommendation.
One of the other things that someone recommended to me who I respect, which was to watch The Chosen TV series, to which I said, I don't want to watch that because I don't want some Hollywood producer's view of Jesus to influence me. And he very slyly said, "Oh, because your view of Jesus is so good, right?" I was like, "Oh, touche, man. Okay, well, I'll watch it."
Yeah.
So I started watching it, and I was kind of lukewarm. Episode 1, episode 2, episode 3 or so. I started just becoming enamored with it because the way they portray Jesus is, it's so compelling. It helps me see, you can read Jesus's words and you're reading them on the page and you're creating the tone in which he said that. And if you don't have a winsome view of Jesus, it affects the way you're reading it. And so watching their portrayal, and I'm not saying their portrayal is exactly right, but watching their portrayal, which is a winsome take on Jesus, is so attractive. I was like, oh, finally, I was like, oh, I'm starting to buy that he wants me. He wants to be with me. He wants fellowship with me. But so coming back to your question and answering it,
it's wonderful.
The person I identify with most is Matthew. I mean, I've read about Matthew all my life, but the portrayal of Matthew in The Chosen has been so interesting because he's so annoying.
Dude, I wasn't going to say it, but sure.
I can't stand him. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't want to be friends with him. And they portray it really well. And so there's this moment in, like, I don't know, episode 3 or 4 or whatever. He encounters Jesus, and Jesus, everyone else, all the other disciples, Peter, the others are like, they have no use for him. And Jesus just locks eyes with him. And it like sent a shudder through me. I was like, whoa. And then several episodes later, I don't remember which one, they've developed the character of Matthew even more, and he's maybe even more annoying at that point. And there's this moment where Jesus looks at Matthew and he said, follow me, come with me. And it was just so powerful because it was like a lightning bolt to me. I was like, I am Matthew. If Jesus could engage with the annoyingness of Matthew and want him, call him, I believe he wants me too. If he likes him, I believe he likes me. And so for me, that was just this crazy moment. I've gone back and watched that episode so many times. I've like videoed it on my phone. Because it helped, like in a hard moment when I'm struggling to believe Jesus's posture toward me. Like, I just remember that. I'm like, okay, this is real. This is real.
Oh, powerful picture, man. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you. You do a lot of creative work. You are a curious man. I think that is some of which drives some of the success you've had, and even just some of the spiritual mentorship that you have with other men's lives. But what's a creative project or endeavor that you've wanted to take on, you just hadn't gotten to it yet?
I will tell you, I will not answer that question, but I will tell you a creative endeavor that I've started, and it hasn't gelled yet, but it's something that's captivating my attention and imagination in a way that's just really cool. And I think there's evidence that God is in it. You've been in my office. We recently expanded our office significantly. And one of the things we added to it was like a recording studio. Several studios and control room and production facilities and
top notch,
a lot of equipment and all of that, and a stage and an event space and all this stuff. And so as we were finishing construction, I was like, man, this place is going to sit idle 70% of the time. Like, what else could we use this for? We spent a lot of money on it. And so we started inviting young artists, musicians, and otherwise to come use the space for free at night and on the weekends. And just giving them, most of them are believers. Most of them are not creating overtly Christian content, but giving them access to the facilities, giving them advice and help kind of on the marketing front to find a platform, to create a following, giving them a stage and bringing people in to let them perform live. And it's been life-giving to me. And we've been doing it for a couple of years now. my original intent was like, maybe I could do like make a little business on the side here.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more I got into it, I was like, dude, there's no money here. I can't figure it out. And so I was like, I just want to do this for fun. But then it started to become obvious to me that you can use the arts to change the culture.
Oh, yes.
And you can do it in a way that is winsome and compelling, but different than the way it's been done before.
Yeah, we need that.
And so kind of as that's been developing, it feels like the Lord's just been bringing more and more opportunities along those lines, opportunity to work with musicians, filmmakers, actual like design artists and other things toward the end of influencing culture. And so I don't know where that's going, but it's something that I'm excited about. And
yeah,
it's fun to think about.
I love the enterprise and the entrepreneurship of that idea. Love the patronage of the arts you've got there. You're right. Shapes culture.
Yeah.
Well, man, speaking of art, my last question for you, and for our YouTube viewers or people who know you, they can see that Christian Pinkston is just ripped, tatted up. You should see these arms. Podcast listeners, I'm just trying to describe to you. This man has collected really what is an impressive collection of art on yourself. And so, Christian, you collect tattoos, but I also know that you use them. How do you use those tattoos?
The tattoos for me are a depiction of my story over the last 10 years. It is like a visual demonstration of what the Lord has done in me. And every one of them, I've got them kind of all over. Every one of them has a story behind it.
Yeah.
And you would look at my arms, and with very few exceptions, I do have the Bucks crest, but which is part of my story for sure. But every one of them, you would look at them and you would not know what you were looking at. Like, there's a tree.
Yeah, very eclectic.
It's a tree. It goes up here. It's got a few little leaves on it.
Uh-huh.
Like, why do you have the tree? Oh, thank you for asking. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. And so it's a great conversation starter on an airplane or wherever on a college campus. It's a great opportunity to be invited to talk about what's important to you. Well, let me tell you why I got that and what it means.
Yeah.
It's an invitation. It's so much different than me starting the conversation and trying to direct it in the way I wanted it to go. And other people are directing the conversation in the way I want it to go. And so that's pretty fun.
Oh, that is fun. That is fun. You've got great storytelling instincts, and you're a great storyteller, sir, and a courageous leader. Christian Pinkston, thanks for joining us today on Man to Man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Always good to talk with you, my friend. Man to Man is a creation of Beta Upsilon Chi, the nation's largest Christian fraternity. Commonly, we're referred to as Bucks. We exist to equip and empower college men to live faithfully and lead courageously. You can find out more about Beta Upsilon Chi by transliterating our Greek letters and adding a .org. That's byx.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and consider giving to our work with college men across the country by following the individual link in the show notes. We are produced, rather well I might add, by the good gentlemen of the Good Podcast Company. Producer Bradley's at the helm over there. Until next time, I'm Dr. Jared Musgrove with Man to Man.